So what I wanted to do today was have a conversation that I think may get some Canadiens fans upset, but at the same time, this is so far into the future that we're thinking about that I think it would be alright to just bring it up, have a conversation about it, and get the blood flowing through the brain a little bit. Just start thinking about whether or not this is an appropriate way to see the Montreal Canadiens. So, our topic comes today from a Twitter thread posted by Brian Wild yesterday. I'm sure most of y'all are familiar with Brian Wild. He does stuff for the Canadiens and he writes stuff. He went out there and tweeted this on the morning of January 21st, and as you could see, it's at 70,000 views, 247 likes, and over 100 replies. People are going out there and talking about this. Brian Wild goes out there and said this on Twitter: I believe the Habs think when 5 guys arrive that they love, Logan Mailloux, Lane Hutson, Filip Mesar, Owen Beck, David Reinbacher, and 2 other guys get healthy, like Dach and Newhook, the Montreal Canadiens believe they're only one 35 goal away from it. Why, with those 7 and a 35 goal added, do y'all still think they're so far away? Now that sentence, entire thought, doesn't really seem too coherent until you reread it without the extra names tossed in there. I believe the Habs think when 5 guys arrive that they love and 2 others get healthy, the Canadiens may believe they're only one 35 goal away from competing. Brian Wild is essentially asking that because the Canadiens have these 7 guys and a potential 35 goal scorer they may be targeting, why is it that Canadiens fans may be thinking the team is far away? Bookmark this tweet of mine for 2026, when all those guys arrive and they add a 35-goal guy. The Canadiens are going to be strong. Top 10. If I'm wrong, go find the bookmark and make me eat crow for days and days. Now this is an interesting idea, because what it does is it questions firstly the fan base and their own perspectives about the Canadiens, but a lot of the replies that go out there and call Brian Wild a little bit, okay, I'm just gonna say it. They say he's a little bit delusional, not like really, but there's a lot of hope and optimism here. There are a lot of Canadiens fans that are questioning this idea, and after sitting there, reading this thought a little bit and thinking about it, I was like, yeah, you know what? I actually have an opinion about that too. That's an idea that I think would be good for a video. So here's my take. All of these guys that Brian Wild mentions, Logan Mailloux, Hutson, Beck, Mesar, and Reinbacher, they all have NHL potential. That's 100% the case. That's not 100% guaranteed that they're going to play in the NHL and all be fantastic players that stick around, but if 2026 rolls around and you have Mesar, Beck, each as middle 6 forwards on the Canadiens, and Mailloux, Reinbacher, and Hutson are all mainstay defenders, that's a world that I don't think is too unrealistic. At the same time, there are other guys like Dach and Newhook that have had health complications, but they've proven that they are NHL players. Considering their age and considering the Canadiens and their window, it would probably be in their best interest to keep these guys, especially if they're able to grow and become the players that we thought they'd be when they were drafted in 2019. Gotta remember, Dach and Newhook, same age as Cole Caulfield. They're all taken in the same class, so that kind of aligns perfectly. Now, with this in mind, this is where blind optimism can come out here to play. Because it's easy to sit down in 2023, or 2024 now, and say, alright, 2 years down the line, the Canadiens have this prospect and this prospect and this prospect making the team, and they're all going to be top-tier contributors, and they're all going to be fantastic, and the Canadiens will be a better team because of it. Like, this happens a lot with rebuilding teams that have a lot of prospects and a lot of fan hype around these prospects. But when you really think about it, 2 years down the line is just 2 years down the line. If you wanted to say that each of these guys could play a cup of coffee in the NHL by the time 2026 rolls around, yeah, that's very fair. But to insinuate that they'll all be top-tier contributors and mainstay guys, that kind of does feel a little bit rushed. And this is where Canadiens fans may get a little bit salty that, yeah, I mean, sometimes our guys get hyped up a little bit. That may be the case here. Who really knows? Is David Reinbacher going to be a guaranteed top 4 defenseman in 2 seasons? Is Lane Hutson going to be in that position? Are Owen Beck and Filip Mesar going to be solidified middle 6 contributors in 2026? I mean, Mesar right now is playing in the OHL. It's a pretty big jump to go from that to NHL contributing status in the span of 2 years. Not saying it's impossible, just saying that everything needs to go right for all of these guys in the best way possible to ensure this kind of result within this time span. Of course, there's also the idea that you would need to add another 35-goal guy, like Brian Wild insinuates, but that's not guaranteed, and of course there would need to be trade considerations for that, what you would give up. And as a result, this Twitter thread, which is very optimistic for the Canadiens, was challenged a lot by other fans. This is Robert Rice going out there and replying to the question, why, with those 7 names and 35-goal guy, do you think that the Canadiens are so far away? The reply here says, because the Canadiens shouldn't bet that all 5 of those 5 prospects will fit perfectly into the NHL and just expect to acquire a 35-goal player. Their offensive prospect pool is thin for top 6 potential. Brian says, I think that the Canadiens think they already got 5 guys of 6, and that they would like to add a 35-goal guy to complete it. Not saying that they all have the goal potential required, but that's what they think. They like those 5 guys. They like their potential, and they think they need one more. Now, the 5 guys, burgers and fries, you got Suzuki, Caulfield, and Juraj Slafkovsky, and then you have yourselves the extra 2 guys in Dach and Newhook, insinuating that an extra 35-goal guy would be placed into that final top 6 spot, and then Beck and Mesar would be third, maybe bottom line guys on the team. Frederick Day goes out there and replies this, all of these guys are unproven NHLers. We'd have to wait and see. I'm not saying they won't be good, I'm just saying we don't know yet. And how is Dach going to look after his injury? Another reply says, there's a lot of if in this statement, but yeah, if all those guys pan out and you add a 35-goal scorer, you're in business. If Dach becomes impactful, if Reinbacher becomes impactful, if Hutson and Slafkovsky reach their potential, and let's say you draft a guy like Cole Yzerman, I believe you got enough. It's all gotta work though. By the way, if you wanted to see the conversation about Cole Yzerman, we did make a video last week. The Why I Want is going to be available on the channel. It gives the scouting report as to what he's about, so check that out if you're interested in him. But this is sort of feeding into, I feel like, a pattern we have seen from Canadiens fans in the past, where sometimes guys who are drafted and who show off very well after being drafted maybe get placed in a position of getting overhyped a bit too much before becoming mainstay guys. We had been talking about this for years, actually. Like, I remember back in the days when we were making videos talking about how Ryan Poehling was going to be a top 6 forward and how he was so good at the World Juniors and in college, and then he made the NHL and he had a hat trick and the shootout winner, and it was fantastic. Everybody was hyped to the moon and back for Ryan Poehling. And then what happened? Whatever happened to Josh Brook? That guy was one of the top players for the Canadiens prospect pool in the WHL, and 2 seasons ago, that guy was in the ECHL. We had all these videos about Caden Primo becoming the next best thing, the next Carey Price. You talk about CP Carey Price, CP Caden Primo, and Caden Primo is barely even a starting caliber goaltender on the Canadiens today. The point I'm trying to make in this video is, even though a lot of the Habs prospects that exist in the system today, the Mailloux, the Becks, the Mesars, the Hutsons, the Reinbachers, even though these guys all have NHL potential, the idea that they'll all work out at the same time within the next 2 years and the Canadiens will magically add a 35-goal scorer, this idea that it's all sort of coming together and it's inevitable, I feel like that's a little far-fetched to go out there and conclude in January of 2024. Like, I'm not convinced that all 5 of those guys will be mainstay 82 NHL game players in 2026. That's such a short time span, and the likelihood of all of them even becoming that together in the first place, you could already say is not guaranteed. Like, back in the day, we said it was going to be, okay, it's going to be Kotkaniemi, Poehling, these guys are going to be 1-2, Suzuki could be another extra center, and then you got Romanov and Ylonen and Brook and Cale Fleury is going to be so good, Victor Mete. That was kind of the thinking that led to these disappointments down the line. And not to say that any of these prospects are the next Ryan Poehling or Kotkaniemi, but this is why it may not be the best decision to get super excited and highly expectant of what these Canadiens prospects will bring. And that's not even a Canadiens thing, it's a sports thing in general. Like, fans of hockey teams love to hype up their prospects. What else is new? But I wanted to make this video to ask you the question as to what you think about this entire idea. Beck, Mesar, Hutson, Reinbacher, Mailloux, how well do you think they're going to play in the NHL within 2 years, and do you think they all become NHL players to a significant magnitude? What are your thoughts on Brian Wild's idea on the Canadiens and their timeline? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.